Hello and welcome to patch 13.13 of League of Legends. My name is Chris, and joining me as always is my patch review duo partner Jason.
Hey, good to be here.
And making his triumphant return, my friend from the ancient times, Nate.
The ancient times when we had to hand crank our computers to get them started, like old cars.
It's nice having you back, Nate.
Good to be back.
We were going to have Tyler coming, but at the last minute he had to dip out. Would have been cool to have 4 people. Maybe next time, though.
Someday.
All right, we got a really small one, so hopefully we can knock this one out in like 30 minutes or something. Let's hop right into it.
Dream on, Chrissy.
Yeah. First up, we got Annie, who is usually largely untouched champion, but we have a nerf to her Disintegrate right here. Don't really agree with it. Her burst is kind of her whole reason for being, and if it kind of loses anything, she kind of loses her whole identity for the most part.
Yeah, I have not seen Annie dominating any games. I don't know, other than just making her weaker, obviously. I don't understand why you would need to dial her back. Team fights, unless everyone groups up so you can drop Tibbers and all of them with a stun. I don't know, she's very middle of the road champ for me, I guess. And all
Yeah,
the time this year.
this is a little bit surprising to me too. It's not a huge nerf. It's about 30 damage from a full combo. If I had to take a guess, it's probably that with all of the success that squishy ADCs have been having recently, Annie is good at deleting them. And so I think this is the first time that she's really had a good purpose in the game since the durability rework or the durability update back in mid-season last season. And yeah, that's probably why she took this slight nerf. I think she was an okay champ. I think she'll continue to be an okay champ.
All right, next up we got Aphelios. And I feel like this guy has seen dramatically less than Annie in Summoner's Rift. And we have even more nerfs as if he wasn't in a, I don't know, contemptible place enough. I don't think he's really been good since his release, to be honest, when he got nerfed like several patches in a row. And we have more nerfs to his built-in sustain, which is something AD carries don't really ever have. So as long as he has it, I guess it'll always be really powerful. And then the nerf to his slow is probably really bad, because that is very damning for him to lose a whole second off of that, because it is a good kiting tool. Turret, you could give or take it. I don't think that's a great part of his kit.
Yeah, it's 20% attack speed off though.
Yeah, but I think it also scales with his attack speed, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, you might be right. What do you think, Nate?
In full disclosure, I have no idea what any of Aphelios' kit does because it's just too much reading. And despite having a master's degree in English, I refuse. I've never seen Aphelios win a game except there's an ARAM where he did really well. And I was like, who's this champ? But just glancing at taking a full second off a slow, like Chrissy said, that is not nothing. That's pretty serious nerf. So,
Oh yeah, these nerfs are huge.
The Aphelios.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, I think Aphelios has always just been a design problem in that his kit is so complicated to understand what it's doing and when that, maybe like a longtime Aphelios player has no problem with it, but everybody else in the Rift, the people that they're playing with and against, don't really know how to work alongside it or how to counter it. So this is really a champ that I don't think is good design for a competitive game. With that said, lately I have heard from some high-level players that Aphelios has actually been busted with coordinated play. And that's probably why he's...
Is that because of like the on-hit items, or what pushed him?
Yeah, I think probably particularly the buffing of Kraken Slayer.
Sure.
Because he doesn't always go all the on-hit items, but it seems like he almost always goes Kraken.
Mm-hmm.
As well as probably just the slower pace of the games, because he does scale very well late into the game. Yeah. So I think this is enough to probably make him not good anymore. Like, these are some pretty severe nerfs.
You said like people don't know how to like counter what he does. I don't think he really has any counterplay in his kit. Most of his abilities revolve around just modifying his auto attacks. He doesn't really have counterplay.
I think the counterplay is often trying to engage on him when he has certain guns.
Oh, okay. I guess that's true.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
but it's
never
like
know.
you gotta
So,
know
yeah,
what all those guns do, and you gotta know what all those Qs do before you can really like understand those trades.
Well, for a trick out there, he always starts with Calibrum and Severum in his offhand. And Calibrum is what makes him Caitlyn, and Severum is what gives him lifesteal. So that is a trick for levels 1 through 6.
There you go.
that sounds great.
Okay, next up we got Ivern, which got a stiff nerf after that somewhat hopeful rework that might have taken him out of joke territory. And they kind of hurt him right in his almost respectable 1v1 potential W buffs he got last patch, or between the last 2 patches or whatever. So this is kind of a bummer. He was already kind of a joke of a duelist anyway, so this is a bit disappointing. And then they even shaved some of Daisy's damage off, and it doesn't scale really well either. So,
No.
I mean, come on, what is 60 damage at like 18? So,
And our movement speed, also, it's sad because we all wanted Ivern to do something, and it looked like he was going to, and they're like, no, that's nonsense. We'll have him continue to do nothing.
This was really surprising to me. I think as we were discussing his rework a few weeks ago, we were looking at it and saying, what did they make better here? Like, granted, his E can reapply one time, but it really seemed like they were making Ivern weaker. He was already weak, and now they're taking off even more from him. Did they? I didn't look. Did they give him like a mid-patch update last patch? Like, is this why they're taking some off here?
I think this is the first change he's gotten since his little mini rework.
Yeah. So this is very surprising to me. In full disclosure, I've been just very busy in the last like week and a half, and haven't gotten to see him this patch. But didn't really seem like he was doing that well.
I've seen two or three Iverns,
away.
and none of them did anything that impressed me.
Did any
Yeah,
of you,
just Ivern stuff.
have any of you guys seen them try to go support yet? I had a theory that might actually be better now than just going jungle.
I have not seen a support Ivern yet. I saw a couple of jungles.
I feel like he's kind of like Bard status, where he's just like, he can do some stuff, but he's kind of AFK champ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because those E buffs were pretty big.
Yep.
Apparently so. I'm really surprised because like I figured there would be so many times where even if you didn't want to be near an enemy, as the person being peeled, you'd be near an enemy because there would be a tank on you, and then it would go off and hit them.
That's why I suspected it would be really good for just the laning phase for just an AD carry, because you'd almost always have range on someone.
So, just less damage for Ivern, champ that already didn't do a lot of damage.
Okay, next up we got Kindred. Not a whole hell of a lot to say. She's a really funky champion. I've never liked this champion because I don't approve of AD carries in the jungle. And this is where it all began with her so many years ago.
Yep.
I guess she's always been kind of a good duelist in the jungle because of all of her kiting potential and her fact that she has to invade if she wants to scale from her passive.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a bummer. But anything to discourage people from actually playing her, I'm actually down for, because I wish they'd just rework her into a standard AD carry.
Yeah,
like
I like the idea.
Visiting jungle camps?
No, I wish she could just lane bot.
Okay.
Yeah. With like the kit and a different passive, you assume? Maybe just
kill
passive, like call your shot.
Carry.
Call your shot on champs, but not give you the focused jungle camp. Maybe? No. I only ever see 2 kinds of Kindred, very polarizing. There's the Kindred that has only played Kindred, it's much like Riven, and is phenomenal. And there's the occasion Kindred that must have just bought the champ because they thought she looked cool and has no idea what's going on. That's usually when they're on my team. But less armor, less health, man, before you hit 6 and can do the not dying circle. Yeah, I don't know. Like as I glanced down to Lee Sin, who got more damage to meet you in the jungle. Yeah, Kindred's 1v1 because the invade is so prime. Like if you don't invade and take those camps, you'll do nothing in the late game. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't really like it. Although that's because I don't hate the champ like Chrissy.
I agree with you. Like Kindred is a champ that really needs to get going early on in order to be relevant through the game. She's one of the champs that if I see like some random player, just hover them and lock them in, particularly if they insta lock it early, I'll just dodge the game.
Mm.
It's such a feast or famine champ, and it goes famine, 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 feast, famine, famine.
Yeah. Well,
It's
and
so
Kindred, you
yeah.
have to like
Mhm.
play the
Go on.
jungler. Like you have to clear camps. You have to gank lanes. Like you have to be on like
Yeah, and
your route
those first
and
two
all that
ganks
stuff.
need to work. Like if
Yeah.
any of those fail, you're basically taken out of the game. And even if they succeed, you have to be able to like have enough pressure to contest the enemy's jungle camps as well.
Mhm.
And if she can get really far ahead, like she'll be a good champion. She can sometimes take over a game.
Yeah.
Um,
That being
but
said, yeah,
in
she
all the other
has
cases,
she
yeah, if
has
she's
incredible
even,
scaling with her passive, incredible
Yeah.
scaling with critical strike. The her E damage goes through the fucking roof if she gets like at least 6 or more stacks and gets her
yeah, she needs
items
to,
going.
she needs,
She's one of
Mhm.
the best late game damage dealers, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
She's
she
like
needs those
Vayne part
stacks
2.
to be that. She can't just farm.
Yep. Okay.
And
You got anything else to say?
No, sir.
I'm good.
All right. Next up, we got Lee Sin, who is receiving yet another buff to his Q, and I'm old enough to remember when this was just 90 total. Then it was 95, and then 100 bonus, and then 105, and then 110, and now we're at 115. So this has been a wild ride for Lee Sin's Q, and I'm still actually down for it because he's just that hard to play. He's very difficult to stay relevant in the late game on him. So I do worry it's getting into like the top cheese full AD Lee Sin
Yeah.
levels of how strong this ability is. Because it's basically you add these together and it's more than Caitlyn's ultimate in terms of ratio. And that's pretty powerful for a like 5-second ability. But I'm still here for it because of how difficult he is to play.
I'll say he is difficult to play, but if you're ever jungling and they have Lee Sin, he's going to kill you in the jungle, but like before level 4. He's going to find you and do 5 times as much damage as you do in a 1v1, and you will be sad. So I think it just makes it even easier to come kill me on one of my camps early. That makes me sad. I'd play a little Lee Sin, but I just don't like his kit that much. So, meh. Much like you and Kindred, I don't think Lee Sin needs help.
Oh,
Leave him
I'll
alone.
take Lee Sin any day over Kindred, man. Any melee body that's a slob, I'll take that, man. No problem.
You will, but you don't play that much jungle. So, how many Lee Sin murders have you experienced in your
I
first
actually don't
4
think
levels
he's. I don't
of
think he's
camps?
that great. The first couple levels, right around like
Uh,
maybe like 4, 5, 6. I think he's a lot better. That's when he hits like his early mid game kind of high point. If he didn't get already
Late
blasted
early
early.
mid game.
It is niche. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to be
His
in
base
central
damage is just
northern South Dakota.
like bonkers. If he lands a Q on you like while you're fighting, like the red buff, like you're done.
Oh, if he gets the drop
in my
on you
experience.
while you like
Oh
already.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
fighting,
Like
yeah.
he's like waiting. He's not doing his jungle camps. He's just waiting to murder you. Lee Sin is always watching.
Yeah, 230% bonus AD is the most I can think of any ability in the game that's not like a 20-part ticking ult.
No,
Um,
Scion's Q is way more than that.
It's a long one though. It's a long
230%?
wait.
Well, his is total, so it basically means it's way more than this.
Sure. But I just think that the fact that it's 230% of whatever you've built with your items is insane. Anyhow, you know what this is? This is they probably were seeing Lee Sin only occasionally played in pro play, and they're like, we want more Lee Sin in pro play because
Exciting.
#LCS big plays.
Oh yeah.
And so they just keep pumping up his damage more and more and more because they want to watch Lee Sin in pro play. That's what this is, and if you're low elo and you're actually good at Lee Sin, take advantage of this.
I want to see like a big HP or armor MR scaling on his W to encourage more like beef play or guardian or something.
Frontline.
That train has already left the station by about 6 years, Chrissy.
Yeah, but it'll just help the tank players build their like 1 damage item, and they'll get a little more for their buck, for this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I would like that too, but like, it's pretty clear that they don't want Lee Sin to ever be a tank again.
Alright, next up we got Nico, and some extremely disappointing changes here, in my opinion, after she got that pretty large-scale rework where she gained a ton of consistency with her passive, and I have seen it used to great effect, but as I suspected, it's kind of just a surprise motherfucker in the lane trick. You don't really see it outside of hiding as a minion, as I thought, but it is pretty good at that, and if you don't count those minions, she will get you, like, every time.
Yep.
So this is kind of a bummer. Outside of her like hiding as something, I don't actually think she's too terribly good. And yeah, pulling back on some of this damage, and then they did restore the ultimate to its previous damage numbers a couple patches ago, so that was good to see. And now the ultimate is less of a surprise factor now too, that she can't hide it as well with her passive.
Yeah, her ult is hard. I played quite a bit of Nico. Her ult is hard to land in a team fight without getting dunked real bad or missing. But yeah, the cooldown on Blooming Burst, like, I mean, it's all about the cage and drop the double Blooming Burst on the champ. So longer cooldown, like not great at support, not great at top. Like, I don't know where Nico will go like in the future. Just pushing out.
Could be a jungler. Yeah, these are some small nerfs. It's not too bad for her total damage at high ranks, but for most of the game, she's going to be a little bit behind where she was with these changes. The Pop Blossom, given that there's so many different ways that she can sneak up on you, I think it's fine that it breaks stealth or it breaks her disguise after half a second. There's no reason she really needs to be able to just get all of the channel time from her ult off and stun you immediately when you realize that, oh shit, that's not a minion, that's a Nico. So she definitely needed that in her ult kit when it was very, very hard to actually trick someone into thinking, oh yeah, that's just a 10 HP Nidalee running at me. She has a lot better ways to sneak up on you now, and I have seen her be effective in games. Usually the team she's on still loses in my experience.
Yeah.
But I have seen her be a pretty effective champ when you use the disguise well and when you actually can hit your E. I like the new Nico. What can I say?
She hits you with that E, you're just done.
Yeah, you get some Qs dropped on you.
Okay, next up we got Nidalee, and we got a little buff here. I kind of feel about this champion just like I do with Kindred, except I actually like Kindred more in the jungle than this champion. This is like my OG hate boner pick.
Yeah, Chrissy, if you were to replace Kindred with everybody, then I would agree with you.
Yeah, Nidalee has not been relevant since I can never remember which pro it was that was the master of Nidalee in like season 2. Hotshot GG, throwing the spears, doing the moves, jumping the walls.
He was the first split pusher.
Yeah, that 5 base movement speed is going to really, change my mind about Nidalee being completely irrelevant. No, not at all. She's still trash, I'm sure.
Yeah, and we shouldn't underestimate the value of base movement speed. That is a very valuable stat in League of Legends. It is not nearly enough to make Nidalee relevant. No. She is just such a bad champion. You have to go in with her in order to do anything, and most of the time, as soon as you go in, you just get burst by their entire team. She doesn't do a ton of damage. She doesn't have the escapability that she should as kind of like an assassin-ish jungler. And not only that, but because she's an AP champ, she can't use the items that work for assassins. Mm-hmm. The ones that give you like real quick like movement speed boosts or untargetability.
Untargetability, yeah.
After you make your assassin.
That'd be great.
Yeah, if they actually made her an AD champ or gave her some type of passive where she can convert her AD stats into AP for her skills, or just put like AD ratios on her skills, that might be enough to like get her close to relevance.
All of her abilities used to have hybrid scalings a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, did they really? I didn't even remember that.
They've pulled back on almost all of that. Only her Q has a really good AD ratio now.
Yeah, being an AP champ, there really aren't good items for her, and her kit isn't that good to start with. It's too much risk for too little reward. This is the champ that pretty much whenever she's on my team, I will dodge. Yeah, like, it doesn't require an insta-lock. It doesn't require, like, another bad champ like Kindred. I'll just dodge if I have a Nidalee. I will ban it if somebody hovers the Nidalee.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I like to say in Nidalee's defense, when she is in a bush, she gains bonus movement speed, so this will probably be a little bit more noticeable than earlier, and if the target's hunted, she gets twice the bonus movement speed from being in a bush, and she gets that from someone hitting one of her traps or hitting her Q.
Yeah, she just doesn't have like the burst of movement that she needs to get away after she goes in.
Okay, next up we got Rek'Sai, and I hear this champion's actually started to become something of a big deal top lane from some various conditions, items, and whatever the hell game state, and is actually doing fairly decent top now because of her new sustain she got on her W that's a percentage of her max health that she can stack off of each wave, and she gets her Fury up to like 100 faster than any of the other Rage champs or whatever. So one wave can get her to like 100 Fury, and then she burrows, and then she gets like 9% of her max health, or 11 or 12, whatever it was. And that's kind of become a thing, so I suspect that's what this is.
Yeah, that adds up. I've seen more Rek'Sais than, for the last 5 years probably. I've seen some Rek'Sais where I used to see almost no Rek'Sais. 40 base health is not nothing. The 3 base attack damage, I mean, I guess in the early game matters, but yeah, that would make more sense for the 1v1 top lane than for jungling. Like, those stats won't matter.
Yeah, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Rek'Sai has been building like towards the damage end of bruisers lately.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of has.
That's what I see.
Yeah. So I think she's been pretty effective with just some of the new items and some of the changes they've made to her recently. Yeah, 40 health is definitely not nothing, particularly when you want to be an aggressive early jungler. So these seem like some real hits to her early game power. And I don't know, I think she'll still be fine.
Okay, next up we got Rell, who has seen a lot of tweaks every patch since the same mini rework where her and Nico got changed. And yeah, I don't know really what to say about this. They've gone all over the place with the changes on this champion now. We got some more jungling help, but we also have some kind of combat nerfs at the same damage. Same time we also have damage buffs though, so seems a bit contradictory of some of these things.
Yeah, I still don't see a lot of Rell despite the rework. I don't know if that's because when Rell becomes Metal Pants person looks really dumb. That's the only reason I don't play Rell, because Rell's kit I find very interesting. But the models can't get over it. Bonus damage to monsters? Like, is this an attempt to make jungle Rell? Rell's so slow. I don't understand. Yeah, this is a mixed bag that does not make me want to play Rell anymore than I already do, which is done.
They are trying to make jungle Rell a thing more than NBC is trying to make Curtis Stone a thing. They're trying to make it a thing more than, like, Prigozhev is trying to make It Wasn't a Coup into a thing. Like we all know that it's not a thing. And they are trying so hard. Rell is kind of the champion I would want to see as a jungler. Somebody who can kind of like make some interesting movement and then get in and actually crowd control you. Yeah. So compared to like a few seasons ago when they were trying to make like jungle Garen and Darius and Morgana into a thing, like not even like considering that those are champs that don't really have a kit to gank with, particularly like Garen.
Garen? Oh yeah.
Darius. Yeah. And they tried to make it a thing by just adding more and more and more bonus monster damage to their kits. Rel is someone that, I don't know, probably could be a jungle champ, but I just haven't seen her succeed there one time. I've seen her tried there a lot of times.
She must be so easy to invade. She like can't 1v1 a housefly.
Yeah, that's probably a
Yeah.
big part
You
of
just
the
walk
problem.
away. Like she's so slow.
And that rework, it was super good for like her consistency and her CC and her tankiness, but she still does like absolutely no damage.
Yeah.
Soraka
Yeah,
probably does more damage.
depending on how you build her. And worth noting here, right, is that what they're doing here is a slight nerf to the top lane and support row. I mean, really, the only thing they're buffing here is the jungle row. I do kind of like the new look of her, but she hasn't quite found her spot yet.
All right, we got next up, we got Varus, and they finally hit the AP build. And I just like to go on the record that I think I actually invented this build like 8 years ago, before it was cool and edgy to go build him AP. It did get absolutely bonkers over time. They kept buffing a lot of his AP ratios until it hit some kind of critical mass, and then they just kind of let it stay there for 2 or 3 years, and now they're finally pulling back on some of it. This 1% reduction on the way his thing stacks, that's basically a 4% nerf, because by design this stacks, so you multiply that and it's actually pretty meaningful. That's really going to take a lot of power out of his W. Now, it was so busted before with AP, and even without AP it's stupid good, that it's still going to be really awesome, but it's no longer going to have that almost one hit or one hit potential that it used to, for sure, because you could easily get the damage on it to like 40 to like 80% of someone's maximum health. The buff on the Nashor's component is kind of nice though, because yeah, that'll just help him kind of last hit.
I only play Varus as a AD, so all the AP people can suck it. I just find it obnoxious. It's like, oh, you have 3 stacks and you're about to die. Like he's gonna E you with some rain of arrows, and all your health will disappear. So I'm pleased to see that is less of a threat. Although, I mean, obviously the AP people are still going to build Nashor's Tooth, but yeah, I'm more of a a lot of AD max range Q, stay away kind of guy. But yeah, I think it's fair because AP Varus is no joke, especially like against a team.
Yeah, hard to tell whether this is coming from just AP Varus being overpowered for a little while, or whether it's coming from the on-hit items specifically, and some of them have mixed ratios, like the Guinsoo's itself. Varus is one of those champs that can build a lot of different ways: classic AD, lethality, on-hit items, pure AP. It's pretty weird. Anyhow, this is like Chrissy said, a decent little nerf to AP Varus. I don't think it's going to make it completely infeasible though.
Oh, I think we'll still see it plenty.
Yeah, my favorite way to see Varus built is just kind of like straight on hit rather than worrying so much about the AP.
Dude, if you built the AP right, you get like the best of both worlds. If you're running like Lethal Tempo and Nashor's, you still do really consistent DPS, and you always have the burst.
Yeah. Just you don't get necessarily as much like on-hit damage from the items.
It's a lot. Okay, next up we got Vi. A really damning nerf to her passive, which has been largely untouched for most of her lifetime. And this is a really big nerf, and this thing has a lot of uptime, so seeing this go down by 3% is a big deal, because it has a fairly short cooldown later in the game. And then we have also a debuff on her ultimate's cooldown, and now that has less uptime too.
I used to play a lot of Vi jungle, and yeah, the shield is really your sustain in the jungle. Although they made the jungle a lot easier since I played Vi in the jungle, so maybe that balances out in the end. And her ult is not like when you play, does not feel like it has a short cooldown. So making it significantly longer, 20 seconds at max rank is or sorry, 20 seconds at starting rank is a lot. I guess to make it so your ganks really, really matter instead of you just roaming around ganking lanes through ult.
Yeah, this is absolutely brutal. I mean, here comes Vi. There goes Vi. If you assume that Vi has about 3,000 HP in the late game, and that a good Vi is going to be able to proc blast shield at least twice in a team fight before she goes down. That's like taking 200 shield away from her passive late in the game in a fight. 200 shield, like that's ridiculous. To essentially have 200 less HP. That's in addition to the fact that, like you said, her ultimate, even at 120 seconds, was not a short cooldown. She doesn't build a lot of CDR. And there are a lot of junglers that will be able to have their ultimate up in every single fight. Vi already wasn't really one of them until level 16. I mean, think about like Nocturne. His cooldown is probably like 45 seconds.
Yeah.
Wasn't the name of her ultimate like Assault and Battery?
Yes.
Yes.
They actually changed that?
I heard somebody's feelings.
I just now noticed that it had a weird name, and I'm like, that wasn't what it used to be called.
There was a lot of hate going towards cops, so they figured let's not throw fuel on the fire.
So silly.
Her E also was changed at that time. I think instead of like excessive force, it became like relentless force or something, or relentless pursuit.
That is correct.
You got to grandfather some of that stuff, man. You can't go changing stuff like that.
I'm just happy that they changed spray and pray back.
That's true. Okay, next up we got Wukong, who's losing some of his clear power. This is his E ability that he dashes, but it's also an area of effectability if people are like tightly closed together. So there's that, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't know I was supposed to be playing jungle Wukong. I almost always see him top. So I guess I'm de-incentivized from playing Wukong in the jungle. 20% is a lot. Like, that's not nothing.
Yep. Lately, I've seen him jungling more than top lane, and usually he is an effective jungler, at least early on. You get to the very late game, he has a hard time getting in safely and not being blown up. But he's a decent jungler, and I don't think this is going to hurt his jungle too much. Just means he's going to be able to clear it a little less quickly, and maybe get a couple less ganks in.
Alright, that does it for the champion changes. Now we have a few item things to talk about, and this first one, I'm not actually sure what this is referring to, or even if this is important. You guys have a theory on what this even means?
I was going to ask you what it meant. Damn it. Jason, save us.
So yeah, I mean, obviously, like let's say you're like a Karthus with Night Stalker, with Duskblade. Obviously, you wouldn't be that, but I'm just giving you an example. And one of your other abilities actually is Duskblade Mythic. Let's pretend you had some type of like DOT like Scorch, right? And one of your other abilities triggered the Scorch, and while you were channeling your ult, the enemy that you hit with your little Skittle died. Okay? Before this change, Karthus would then be able to become like untargetable. Now, the passive that makes him untargetable and invulnerable won't trigger because he's in the middle of a channel.
So you're still targetable while the channel is active.
Yeah, I think the passive just won't go off if you're in the middle of channeling when the enemy dies. Now, for something that might be more relevant, maybe like a Katarina or something like that.
In ARAM, I have built the Duskblade on Varus, as we were talking about him earlier. Dropping Qs in people's faces. Is the Q a channel? The arrow?
Yeah.
They're on the arrow back?
I was just thinking that like Vi's Q or that Q are both channeled abilities too.
So what will happen different now?
So basically, if you're in the middle of a channel
Yeah.
and an enemy that you had damaged dies because
Yep.
of like one of your DOTs, or actually just because one of your allies killed them
Sure.
after you did damage to them. The Night Stalker passive, which is what makes you untargetable and
Yes.
invulnerable, I believe will
Yes.
not proc.
But I think that's what got removed, so now it will proc.
No. I think it used to proc and now it won't.
Seems
I
like a
think that the
dumb
fact
change. I mean, if
Hmm.
you
I
get
think
the
that
How often
takedown,
did that come up?
if you get the takedown, shouldn't you get the thing? What does it matter?
you
But
should, but there might be cases where basically like you're getting like 3 seconds of free time using an ability that will do damage, which makes it kind of go against the intention of what that passive does.
Yeah, but
The intention is if you start to use an ability on someone that's going to damage them, you lose your stealth.
don't you break stealth, or you break your obscured whatever the hell you get from the untargetability if you damage someone?
Yes, but essentially like the channeled abilities are the ones that you're using the damage against them. The damage only comes through really at the end of the channel. But the point is, you're supposed to be vulnerable during your channel.
There must be like one champion that actually made use of that or something.
came up on, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder whether it was
The-
Katarina, although she's constantly dealing damage.
Oh, yeah.
She
The
doesn't
bullet
know
point
how to
makes me
build
think
this.
they removed that, and now you no longer like that. It's the opposite.
Katarina wouldn't really want that item because not only
No.
is it not AP, and not only does it not have AP or magic pen, but she can't really use lethality because her abilities do magic damage.
If you look at like the static shiv, a couple changes below, it says removed damage against minions no longer scales with. They didn't remove the no longer scaling with. They removed the scaling, and I think it's the same thing here. They removed
Interesting.
the ability to trigger while channeling. It is very
Interesting.
ambiguous
That's-
wording.
Yeah,
I will give you
poorly
that.
written, but I see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
We have removed something, period, not full colon, and then we're going to describe what we removed in a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
full
agree with
colon's
you.
a
It's
real
terrible
villain.
wording, but
It's a real villain.
but I believe that was what they meant.
Okay.
Okay,
Next.
whatever. Next up, we got Essence Reaver, and this is a pretty substantial buff to an item you don't really see on hardly anyone anymore, even the people
I
that
love the Essence Reaver.
supposedly should actually need it. We got a big buff to the Sheen component that doesn't scale with anything because it's only your leveling AD, which not a lot of items make use of and doesn't come into play a lot. But it is a pretty big deal, especially on melee champs who have much higher base AD, so that jungle Nasus you like, Nate, is
Mhm.
gonna take a huge hit or have a huge boon to its damage, I guess.
Yeah, no, Essence Reaver Nasus is where it's at, because then you can build like Jack Show or like a better mythic. I mean, obviously the stupid Super Sheen is real good too, because it gives you more health back. But I like the mana return, and then building other mythics on Nasus, especially in the jungle. But it is what it is.
The interesting thing about Nasus is that his bread and butter ability for fights, the Q, costs so little mana. But yeah, if you're using like the W and the E as well, you're gonna run out of mana quickly.
Yeah, well, and when you don't have enough mana for a Wither, you always have enough for Q. Like whatever, it's like 20 or something. So your
Yes.
generic recharge, it's always there. When you don't have a Wither and they're just jogging away, and you're like, oh, I have no gap close. Here we
Just-
are again.
Yeah, I do kind of wonder whether because this really by the time you get to the late game, the bonus AD that you're losing here probably means more than the base AD that you're gaining. But yeah, in the early to mid game, if you can get this up, this is a pretty big buff. And so I wonder whether this is going to push certain users into actually building the Essence Reaver first before their mythic.
Jungle Nasus, I sure do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reasonable. Even like if you're like a Sivir or an Ezreal or something that's going this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is such a niche item. I don't think it's just actually going to change anyone who
No.
is already buying it from buying it more, and it's certainly I
Right.
don't think it's going to make champions that
not gonna
weren't
s-
buying it start buying it.
Yeah, it's the least exciting Sheen finish, other than maybe Lich Bane.
Lich Bane is
I don't
way more
know.
exciting.
Lichbane Veigar with
Lichbane seems
1400
exciting,
AP,
but
that's exciting.
there are very few champs that will actually benefit from a Lichbane that wouldn't have just because like you have to get the auto in.
And the new
A lot
ice
of those
one is
AP champs.
actually really strong.
Usually better AP items is what I'd choose over Lichbane most of the time. I mean, like a Teemo, get that Lichbane. But
Yeah, Echo. There's a lot of champs
yeah.
that,
There's a few.
or at least,
The autos, you're gonna
large
be autoing. But like, yeah, all the mages, it's like don't buy that. Don't buy that.
Mhm.
Stop autoing people. Push your buttons, run away.
and then run.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we got a nerf to Static Shiv. And this probably was a bit overtuned when it first came back into the game. Now that it does damage, it's probably already has its place that it never had before, because it was just a crit and attack speed item the first time it was in the game. Now it actually has the damage of like a full ticket mythic or legendary item. And yeah, these numbers were probably already preposterous anyway.
Yeah. 50% is pretty silly. An item that jumps around. So
yeah, it's weird to see that AP instead of the base damage is what they're hitting here. Were there AP champs that was like so overpowered for the wave clear on?
Mm-hmm.
Or you think it was just they're trying to, after they added like AP ratios to like 211 different champs in the last season, that they're just trying to cut down on the hybrid builds now. That they did everything they could to think.
I don't know.
They probably have some data collection
because since the item doesn't have AP, if you were some kind of mage, you would need to build an AP item second, or already take this second or third or something, thus meaning it can't really be used in the laning phase to great effect.
But if they have a metric that tells them like how much damage it's doing in team fights, and it's just like doing a bit too much, because usually you can like hover over your items and it tells you like this game you've done this much damage. Maybe they just noticed they're like, ooh, that's a little too hot for its dollar value. Need to dial that down.
All right, and then lastly we have Stormrazor, and this was also wildly overtuned since its previous effect didn't even scale with anything. It gave just a little slow and then a chunk of like base damage, and then it received this huge AD scaling and then a random AP scaling to boot. So much icing on the cake for the Doom build. So it did receive a giant base damage increase that's closer to what it originally had, but that's not going to make up for how much that crazy AD ratio used to be. This was such a great item when they made all the item changes for just how much free chunk damage the thing gave.
Yeah, 60% was a lot. That's pretty bananas. And then no AP, that's fine, acceptable.
This is interesting because the last couple of patches we were kind of like saying, what are they doing here? What are they thinking with these Doom build on hit items and with giving everything AP ratios? And I don't have a problem with this change in particular. I think that they are making it a little bit weaker. But I look at this, and this is kind of a signal to me that what Riot is trying to do is they're very stubborn. They're a little bit arrogant. I think that they really wanted to make the ridiculous levels of on hit damage into a thing. They thought it might be interesting, and they instead harmed the game. Right? They really just threw everything out of balance. They created some degenerate playstyles. And instead of backing off on that change, bringing Guinsoo's Rageblade and Kraken Slayer back to where they should be, they keep trying to make 1,000 little changes, pulling all kinds of different little levers and hoping that somehow, maybe, it'll create a tenable balance. And what they're doing here, particularly with increasing the base damage and reducing the AD ratios, is I think they're trying to cordon off these on-hit items so that only certain champs, Kog'Maw, Tristana, maybe like Aphelios, Vayne, Jinx, or Kate can use them. And that works in a sense, but the problem is that the items now have a much greater share of the power than they ever have before. And that means that all the champs are constantly going to be in a power limbo. Wherever any of the items change, all of the champ balances will change as well. And conversely, all of the items will also be subject to imbalances based on whether the champs that they specifically work with are getting good or bad. So it just makes it so ridiculously hard for them to actually balance these items properly, and it means a lot less diversity in the build paths. Is when you have to commit to all this all-in on-hit style, that there's very little room to diversify into situational items. So they're trying really hard to balance the game without actually targeting the things that made it problematic in the first place. And I know I just went on a little bit of a rant, but it's like, I see what they're trying to do, and it's just so wrong-headed.
Well, it's possible. My question to both of you, do you think Riot is actually trying to balance the game, or do you think they're trying to make splashy changes like the on-hit items, etc., that will have people want to keep playing because it keeps it fresh and bizarre, and you have these like you said, all the tiny levers are making it so that it's not the same experience every time. Because there are definitely games, for example, Warhammer 40,000, 40K just had new rules come out that are not balanced, but they got everybody to come back and play because it's all different, not because it's well tuned.
2,000% that second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think both things can be true, right? Like if you saw Tyler One's rant recently about these item changes and how they just didn't need to do it, and we kind of wish they didn't. He was talking about how they just don't care about the ranked experience. He was saying that all they care is just keeping things new and fresh for people that are going to play ARAM or TFT or low level normal games.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the argument. I don't completely agree with it. I think they're trying to do both, ideally, but they're stubborn about it, right?
I think it's all for the pro scene.
If it means taking back the things that are going to be fresh and new, even if it means a better game experience, that they won't do it. They'll try to pull all the 1,000 different tiny levers around it and see if maybe they can get it to accidentally fall into a place that works. Rather than actually walk back the most important changes that screwed up the balance in the first place. So I think they'd like to have both the new, fresh, exciting, big things for the Timmies out there.
Yep.
As well as have it be balanced, but I think their priority is in the wrong place.
I think they just realize that the game is more than likely over the top of the hill at this point, and they just want to introduce as much chaos and flux as possible to the pro scene to force the team comps to shake up and force more conflict to maintain viewership.
I would also assume that from a business model standpoint, that when players try something strange, obviously it backfires in your face most of the time, but every once in a while you have that game where you either dominated or a bunch of really crazy stuff happened because you combined some wacky items that maybe no one really thought about combining, and that will keep you playing longer than a super balanced rank grind. That the rank grinders are going to be there anyway because this is the game they play and want to grind higher levels on. Whereas the casuals that are probably spending more money on skins and chromas, want one splashy champ to do wacky stuff and troll people. I don't know. I would not be surprised if that were a factor.
Perhaps, but why not keep both people happy and just make a new game mode? I think that would get people into it a lot more than just there's some new items that ruin the balance of the game, but maybe you'll be able to feel really OP in some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them kind of separating normal ranked and the pro scene in any way by introducing some kind of new game mode.
Yeah, it would fragment the content creators showing you some wacky stuff they did, and then you want to try it. That kind of trickle down, whether it's from the pros or just from streamers doing silly stuff.
I think you make a good point, right? And it's not that this brave new world of completely reworked ADC mythics isn't exciting. It's that it isn't satisfying and just doesn't create a good game experience.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's enough of the Stormrazor debate. All right, that does it for 13.13. The
All right,
next
before we
patch,
finish,
however,
can I ask you guys one trivia question?
I'm listening.
Sure.
All right. You know how every champion has those circles that show how good they are at damage, utility, toughness,
CC.
mobility, and crowd control?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all rated like low, medium, or high. There's actually one champ we discussed in this update that has a medium rating in every single one of those categories. Want to take a guess which one it was?
I don't know. It's so predicated on like Riot being either super competent or incompetent, because I imagine half of those are just bullshit.
It's super subjective. So we've got, I'll read off the champs real quick. Annie, Aphelios, Ivern, Kindred, Lee Sin, Nico, Nidalee, Rek'Sai, Rel, Varus, Vi, and Wukong.
I'm gonna say Rek'Sai because she does a lot of different things.
I can say Lee Sin for the dashabouts and
Yeah,
the stupid damage.
That's a good guess
Oh, Lee
too.
Sin is definitely not medium in damage. I think he's he's medium in a few categories, but Chrissy, you are absolutely right. Good job, man.
Wow, sir.
Rek'Sai with a medium rating in every single one of those.
Mario from the original Smash Brothers.
Yeah, the all-rounder.
The all fives, baby, all fives.
Oh man, Mario Kart, good times.
Okie dokie. Next patch is going to be a banger since they're messing around now with half the tanks in the game are all receiving
God.
changes. So we
Leave my
got
fatties
another
alone.
round of crazy shit coming around the corner. So that should be interesting. Also, as a side note, Jason and I will be doing our first episode of our new little mini series in a few days here, probably featuring Blitzcrank, first champ we're going to talk about. So if you've made it this far, look forward to that.
Absolutely, there's some good think tank stuff going on with what we're going to bring you with that video, and I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
Take care.